Hello, I'm David Hunt. I'm here to introduce you to some of the most amazing people from our community. My very special guest today is a man that I've known of for a long time, but you'll hear more about him as we get talking. I'm talking about Stuart Soley. Hello, Stuart.
Hi, David.
Now, you're the priest at St. Mark's in Fitzroy.
Yes, I am.
Which is just such a well-known church in Melbourne. But we'll get back to that a little bit later. Tell us, what were you like as a child? I bet you're trouble.
Well, I guess it depends who you talk to.
Your mother would say an angel, but...
Probably, and yes, and all those sorts of things as mothers often do about their gay sons. So I was fairly shy, actually, and quiet. I was short, and so I would be teased at school and all those sorts of things as you do.
Oh, and was that hard? Because, you know, it can be really horrible at school, can't it?
Oh, yeah, and kids can be merciless and sort of thing. And I was a bit, you know, shy, so, you know, the more rough kids who are able-bodied, you know, you get knocked around a bit.
Did you know that you were gay back then, as a little kid?
So, because I have these abiding images of some of the teachers I had crushes on.
Right.
And I had those teachers in those days, because I'm a child of the '60s, and their shorts and long socks. And I remember being quite captivated. And then at the age 10, the school photo, I was a bit in love with the teacher I had that year. And the school photo kind of showed me with my eyes fixed on him. So, you know, so I think these are the intimations I have.
So when did the calling come to you to be a priest?
Yeah, it's a good question. I reflect on this a lot because I think it comes in a sense from a very young age, but in a very clear form in my late teens, as I was going off to university and thinking what I was going to do with my life, and various people reflected back to me. They thought that I would be in the church, and this kind of planted a seed. Yet, in a sense, it was there already. Right.
So you were going to church a lot and were involved in your local church?
Yeah. Well, my parents were £10 POMs, and my father was the caretaker or verger at our local church. So I lived on church property for the first 7 years of my life.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, I guess I haven't gone very far because I still live on church property.
And was it Anglican?
Anglican, yes. Yep. And so in a sense I have that sense of the church and myself as a person, and if I say as a gay person, it's intertwined right from a very early age.
How hard was it for you though, you know, like knowing that you were gay, especially by the time you were going to university, and wanting to go into to be a priest, where it was such a no-no to be a gay person in that situation?
Yeah, so there were pressures. One I deal with, even in my own family situation, of not entirely feeling comfortable or affirmed about sexuality in that sense. But also in the church, knowing of people who are openly gay who get rejected or accepted for a time and then drop out of the system. Yep. So I had a certain amount of fear offering myself, which I did not until I was aged 30. Yep. And because I had a career before I became a priest. So there was some fear that this might happen to me. And so I learned very much to hold myself in check within the system, until I got to a point when I had been ordained for some time, and I was asked to second a motion affirming some study materials about sexuality. I thought I could no longer talk about myself in the third person. So I thought I need to talk about myself from my experience, which is what I did in 2002. So it was about 7 years after I was ordained. I was fortunate to go through the system and I was never asked the question, are you gay? Yep. Once I was ordained, it happened to me a number of times, which I handled in different ways. But so in a sense, I took the initiative in that speech I gave then.
But it would have been hard though, like sort of coming out within the church, because you weren't supposed to be, were you?
No, and there's a great culture of don't ask, don't tell on one hand, or coded language, which also inhibits the freedom of LGBT people in the church. and also doesn't allow us to actually try and marry those, marry faith and experience, which is so important to an integrated and whole person.
Yep.
That's what I think. So it was scary when I did it, but it was also liberating in a sense. And I had some very strong support from deep and good friends as I did that.
But what about the hierarchy of the church? How did they treat you?
In the case of the speech, they ignored it, which of course, as we know, to ignore or to silence is often a form of homophobia.
Yeah.
So I think I don't quite know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And I did it, quite in a finessed way, as in just changing the pronoun about halfway through the speech. But I do think that I've always received great affirmation from various members of the hierarchy for my integrity in trying to hold together these different parts of myself.
You were in a parish in Fitzroy.
Sunshine.
And tell us about that, because you were doing some wonderful work there.
Well, I was there for 12 years, and I went there and the church was pretty much falling down because of the reactive soils. And I felt that, what do we do? Do we leave this as is, or do we build something which is fit for purpose for the people of God and for service to the community, which is what we did. It took a long time for that to come into being, but it was completed just before I left after 12 years.
Did you have a partner at all in that period?
No. This has been one of the lonelinesses I've discovered and experienced following this vocation. So I haven't had that intimate support in my life, which has been a point of great sadness at times and loneliness.
Yep.
And that's quite difficult. I know clergy who have partners, and it makes a huge difference.
Now, is it true, I might have this wrong, but I think it was you that told me that you are allowed to come out within the Anglican Church, but you can't be a practicing gay person. Is that true?
Well, I don't think I'd need to practice, but I think, look, I think this is often the distinction is made, which I think is, I've said to the hierarchy that I think this is actually inhuman to treat a section of the community of faith, of the church people, in this way. A whole person expresses themselves intellectually, emotionally, spiritually, physically, and intimately in those ways.
Now, all of a sudden, you move from Sunshine Parish to Fitzroy, the famous St Mark's, who back in the day, Tony Noble, who's a friend of mine, and you're aware of that, forged itself as, like on World AIDS Day, the church would be overflowing with people. You came into that church with that reputation there. What was it like? Was it really liberating being in a parish like that?
Yes, it has been, because it actually drew together really important parts for me. One is a church which is part of what we call the Anglican Catholic tradition, which has an emphasis on beauty and ritual and a wholeness of being, as well as social justice, doing things for the poor or marginalised people, LGBT people being one of those.
Because there's a soup kitchen there, isn't there?
We have a drop-in centre for homeless men, predominantly, which operates throughout the week. And the parish has done these sorts of social justice things for over 140 years.
Wow.
In one form or another.
Yep.
And predating Tony with that marvellous AIDS ministry, where there was some wrath incurred and disapproval incurred with that. But for over, I'd say about 50 years, it's been a safe place for LGBT people.
Right.
And so some of Tony's predecessors fostered that.
Right.
So it's deep within the soul of the parish.
Yep.
And so it's got a large, about 36% of the congregation are LGBT or self-identifying.
Yep.
Which is a high proportion for a parish, and but the key is not to be a gay ghetto, but rather where everyone exists and every life is celebrated in its beauty.
Yeah, well, I've found that when I've been to that church, it truly is. Everyone gets on so well together. You're also a board member of LifeWorks. What's that?
LifeWorks started its life 70 years ago as the Anglican Marriage Guidance Council, mouthful, but now it does a much more holistic way. It does relationship counselling, dispute resolution, as well as some workplace support and those sorts of programs.
Now, you're really entrenched now in St Mark's. You can't see yourself moving, and that's your home at this stage?
It's very much my home, and I think that I've been there almost, in the middle of the year, I've been there 8 years.
Wow, it's been that long. Gosh.
And in a sense, you know, my experience of long-term positions is that you only just start to hit your stride around this time.
Yep.
And where you can effect further change. I mean, I'm really interested in making sure we make a real difference to people's lives. So it's an environment which is not only safe, but where people can ultimately transform and become the fullest sense of themselves.
Stuart Soley, a pleasure to chat to you, as it always is, because I've interviewed you on Joy many times.
The very best of the programs on Joy is yours.
Thank you. I'm David Hunt. I'll see you soon.